Welcome back, everyone, to the Grunge Bible Podcast, episode 109 on deck. My name is Chris Salona, and I'm here with Ethan Shalloway. Ethan, the 109th time. How are we doing? Do you feel any more excited or any more enlightened on
the 109th check-in?
Yeah.
I feel more, I'm going to say more enlightened today. I'm feeling good.
That's good.
I'm excited to do this, to talk about this. This is a great topic, one of my favorite genres, if you will, in the music world, and that is hits of the 90s, summer version. So it's strictly stuff that you want to hear while you're on the beach, while you're, for some reason, in your hot apartment, trying to open the windows.
Strangers too.
Yeah. You're trying to get some air going, or you're at the ballpark for some reason, tailgating. And I'm pretty excited about it. I had a good weekend. I just got back from California, and I'm just heading back to Pennsylvania here soon. I'm going to meet up with the producer Drew at a friend's bachelor party at the end of the week. So nice. I got a lot going on. But I'm happy to be here with you. How are you today?
That's great. I'm good. It's another week. I'm excited for this week. Going to work a little bit. I might go hit up a Boston Red Sox game with Patreon member Cullen. Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce. Hopefully that happens tomorrow. But yeah, man, I'm doing pretty well. I have no complaints. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of talk about this episode. So last week, we did the best album opening songs of like the 90s and the grunge era. And before we went live and recorded the episode, there were a few songs and a few bands that we really wanted to record that were kind of in this vein. Like, I don't know why, Ethan, but like this is just an itch that we need to scratch, talking about summer hits of the 90s and a lot of these bands. So rather than put them in the list last week for episode 108, we decided to keep that week's episode just kind of more truncated around grunge and grunge adjacent stuff. And you know what? Because we make the rules here, we just decided to give summer hits of the 90s.
It's proper due.
Its entire episode. So I'm excited to discuss that. Here in the United States, depending on where you live, it's getting warmer. It may be warm already. And we're definitely looking forward to the summer. It's it's one of my favorite times of the year. And this is just a good soundtrack. And I think people listening, most of the people who listen to our show, the statistical majority, are between 35 and 45. So they'll have some really good memories of either loving or hating the bands and the songs that we are going to discuss today. But once again, cool little nostalgic trip. But for us, we've taken ownership of these songs even in our youth, in our relatively young ages compared to some of the old farts out there listening to this podcast. So yeah, that's what we have going on, and we're going to get into it. But first and foremost, we have some
people to thank.
Yeah, we have some gratitude. We're recording this on a Monday. This is the earliest we've recorded in a while.
It's true. We've been on the other side
in advance of the episode drop. But sometimes you have to start the day, start the week with a little gratitude, and that's what we like to do here at Grunge Bible International Enterprises. Everybody who's chosen to support us, especially people that have chosen to support us financially, with it being the, in the ballpark of the anniversary of when we started this podcast, a lot of what we have to purchase to make this podcast run, it comes due around this time. So this is an expensive time of year for Grunge Bible Enterprises International. And we would like to thank everybody that has chosen to support us and lighten that load a little bit. And leading the pack would be our top-level supporters on Patreon. If you would like to become one, go to the Patreon link in the show notes to learn more. We have 3 tiers at which you can give, but we like to thank the people in the top level. So I would like to thank the following individuals for their $10 per month contribution to keep the podcast rolling. I'd like to thank Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce, Doug Endy, Chris LSMS, Carlene Salona, Jamie Lynn, Jade Mercado, Granny Grunge, Faith Bittner, Fresh Tendonitis, Fuck Soup, Kara K, Captain Hightop, Brother Nature, Rachel Corning, Nikki Six, Millie, Alex Long, Black Hole Sean, Alexis Shannon, The Blue Owl, Lauren Irene, Marianne, Seattle 4 Fanboy from New Jersey, Shoe the Shoeless, What the Fuck's Up Denny's, Corden Stewart, and Christine Shepard. Thank you, one and all. And a special thanks to everybody who is here right now listening to us. That is a lovely way to support as well. And we know your time is valuable. So you choosing to spend it with us means a lot.
It really does. We can't say it enough how thankful we are to have people engaged in what we have to say and the content that we put out.
Oh, and, we're just churning out content.
Yeah, yeah. And it's fun to have this project. Me, Drew, and Chris talk about it a lot. Something to do together. So to get, validation from everybody, the support is cool. Yeah. So, this episode is about summer hits, and there's a few ways you can kind of like attack this. I feel one would be there's some bands that scream 90s beach, like I said, hanging with your friends and stuff that you just think of. Like I think of like obviously like Dave Matthews for me is like gonna be like he's always like I feel like peak Dave was in the 90s. I didn't get to obviously experience the craze until afterwards because I think people loved him, but Red Hot Chili Peppers, Counting Crows of the world, even Green Day to me, I kind of, I always think about like the summer 90s stuff. But then on the other side, you have these, you have a lot of one-hit wonders in this genre too. Or like, at least maybe they're not
as far as we're concerned.
As far as we're concerned, yeah. And a lot of people probably,
as far as this exercise goes, they had one hit and it was wondrous.
Yes, you see one song, you're like, wow, that's really good. Let me check out the rest of the band. You're like, I like the hit. That's enough.
Yeah, it's like, we'll stick around the hit.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways to kind of look at this, but I'm pretty excited. So, what do you want to start,
I have a question.
Chris?
I have a question to start.
Yeah.
And this is kind of because a lot of these bands and a lot of the songs that we're going to discuss, they fit the mood of what people consider to be summer hits of the 90s. So is summer hits of the 90s, is that a genre or what is it? Like, how would you?
I think so.
I think it's a genre too.
I wholeheartedly think it is. I think people, there's also the hits of the 2000s.
Well, that's
right?
what I was saying. That's a point that I wanted to make because a lot of the songs that when I was writing my notes that I wanted to put down, and some of them I did, in some of the bands, I'm like, oh, summer hits of the 90s, absolutely. And the song came out in like 2002 or 2003. Mm-hmm. Like it's a sound, it's a genre. It's not beholden to the calendar, to the chronology of the world.
If I said summer hits of the 70s, well, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Oh, fuck yeah. America, Seals 60s, and Croft, Little Eagles. Right on.
There's summer music for every decade.
Yeah.
And the 90s have a very specific one as well.
And
you're right, there are some that overlap that are 02. There's actually a lot that came out in 99 that obviously will have been celebrated all throughout the 2000s.
Right.
But because it came out in the 90s, that's where it gets the...
And it's interesting because we were born at that kind of like in-between stage. We were too young to really get a lot of the stuff from the 90s. But a lot of the stuff from later in the 90s lingered to the point where it still had relevance when we were in our childhood and when we were starting to listen to music. Because a lot of these songs, like Sugar Ray, for example, I mean, we just got to
get right into it.
We just got to get right into it. I mean,
Sugar
Ray might be the valedictorian of this class. Of the summer hits. I mean, that 1459 album, I mean, they have so many fantastic songs.
Every morning,
and it's just, it's one of those things that I remember being a kid in the early to mid 2000s. And I mean, you couldn't avoid Sugar Ray. There was a lot of these songs. I mean, you couldn't avoid them.
Couldn't avoid Sugar Ray.
Yeah, like, I mean, Sugar Ray was everywhere. I mean, you're just trying to go about your business and boom, there's Sugar Ray again. Yep. But it's one of those things that, these songs have staying power, and I don't think people would have realized that at the time, and I think they still have an appeal. And I mean, you can pontificate about the merits of the music and whether it ages well or whether it's good music or not. But I mean, people are still listening to these songs. People younger than us, Ethan, mind you, they're younger than us, and they still listen to these songs when they're on the beach with their friends or when they're, they got the top down on the Jeep or whatever, and they're hitting up their local ice cream shop for some ice cream on a summer day. I mean, this is what it's all about. And I'm
cruising down the highway, listening to "Life Is a Highway" by Tom Cochrane.
Exactly.
Came out in '91. It fits.
Exactly, it fits. And I have to say, Ethan, we opened this episode talking about enlightenment. I feel enlightened talking about this topic because, I mean, we're talking about summer hits. if you think about it, what we talk about most of the time would be the winter hits, like the dark, sad shit.
Yeah, well, you made a good, like we were talking about this last week, like, you know, if you're sitting on the beach, you know, and
you're
the
not
people out
listening
here,
to Alice in Chains.
well, the people that are listening are probably like,
yeah, that's going to offend a lot of people.
Put on Dirt, but like, okay, if you had the choice to listen to, you know, Down on the Upside or, you know, Breakfast at Tiffany's, like, you know, it's not the same, and the setting is very important. So
yeah, like if I'm given two doors, and one of those doors is Verses by Pearl Jam, and the other one is Cracked Rear View by Hootie and the Blowfish,
yeah,
and I have to be on a beach or I have to be near a body of water, I mean that Verses door is staying closed.
Right. And then you either can follow it up with some Mudhoney, or Sister Hazel comes in.
Exactly.
All for you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. And you can get back and you can go down heavy into some Melvins or some Skin Yard, or you can just keep things rolling with some Bare Naked Ladies or Sublime, even The Offspring, dude. I mean,
yeah,
the possibilities here are really, really endless. And it's funny that a lot of these bands, they kind of, there's maybe 10 or 12 or 15 bands that kind of, in my opinion, corner the market on this sound that we're talking about today. And it's interesting because some of these bands are still making music now, and some of them still make these sounds, but I think it's one of those things that had to happen at that time and place, and the music has to have aged a little bit, I think, at this point for us to feel the way that we do about it.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing. I was trying to think about the hits now and the stuff now that, you know, comes out maybe around the summertime, and the difference, and you know, it's just wrapped around the 90s feel. And like when you watch the videos, people wearing baggy pants, or they're at the beach and they got the frosted tips. Yeah, the spiked hair, and like, you know, it just fits so much with the visual side of it that it just brings me like a boosted, you know, it's like boosted dopamine compared to maybe what you hear now. Now you hear country at the beach and stuff. You don't hear this stuff. Right, people love country.
Yeah, people do love the country music.
So, oh man, yeah. So Counting Crows is a really good one because
right, and this was kind of the genesis of this
where
episode,
it started.
Because last week when we were doing our top 10 album opening songs, Ethan, you were out there campaigning for Hanging Around by Counting Crows to be on our top 10 list off of their 1999 album, This Desert Life.
I love that album.
I really appreciated it. Yeah, This Desert Life is fantastic.
It is, yeah. And we were making the list, and it was, you know, there was a lot of bands that, I mean, obviously they have a ton of albums, but maybe their first song wasn't, you know, didn't hit as hard as Counting Crows, you know, and I don't know. I just wanted to include them because I thought they were important for the 90s, but we did later make it more like grunge, put it in the trunk of the grunge. Right. So it made sense not to include them.
That got the wheels turning because I mean, I'm a big fan of the Counting Crows, and a lot of people, I think they're very polarizing. People either love or hate the Counting Crows, and they love or hate Adam Duritz, and they think he's either the most eloquent songwriter of his generation, or they think that they can't understand anything that he's saying and he's speaking gibberish. But in terms of today's episode, I mean, they have a lot of good stuff that kind of fits this. I mean, it starts with that first album they put out, August and Everything After. Probably the biggest song from that album would be Mr. Jones, which is, I mean, inescapable in terms of this genre. Obviously, moving forward into the next decade with the Shrek soundtrack, Accidentally in Love is a big one as well. But you're right, this Desert Life, Hanging Around Here absolutely fits there. Round Here as well, which was one that I was campaigning for last week.
That's the beginning of it. Yep.
Yeah, and what we were talking about in terms of, is it a sound or is it a genre? Like, what is it? Because there's a lot of stuff that, like we were talking about, goes after the decade. I mean, one of my favorite summer Counting Crows songs, which is a little bit of a deep cut, is from 2002's Hard Candy album, and it's one of the final songs on the album, and it's called Up All Night (parentheses) Frankie Miller Goes to Hollywood, and it's such a good summer song. And I mean, it's helped by the fact that one of the lyrics is "Summer's almost here." We could head out to the dunes tonight because summer's almost here.
Yeah.
But man, it's so good. But I mean, they were one of the standard bearers, I would say, of that sound. But you have different elements of that sound. I mean, that's kind of just like standard issue. But I mean, you had a lot of the beachy sounds, obviously, with, for me, Sublime. I mean, you can't think about them without thinking about the beach, in my opinion. I mean, What I Got, Santeria.
Yeah. I mean, it is they're an incredible band. Obviously, gave us some really beautiful stuff, and they're cemented into the '90s. Listen to them a ton when the season comes around. That's no doubt.
Yeah. Just think about Bad Fish. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Dude, it's Wrong Way. Yeah, there's some really good ones. Two joints.
So we had the Counting Crows that kind of made this idea come to life. The other band, and I think the band that sealed the deal, because there was another song that you really wanted to include, was the lead-off song, if I remember correctly, to the 1994 album 4 by Blues Traveler. And Ethan, you love Run Around by Blues Traveler.
Run Around and Hook, man.
And Hook was another great one. But I went back, Ethan, and their 1990 self-titled album, it starts with But Anyway.
Yeah.
That was the lead off. And I mean, that's
amazing. That makes the cut.
That's got to be the best Blues Traveler track ever.
I mean,
you get John Popper on the harmonica.
Yes. You cannot beat, I don't know as many. There's probably maybe better blues harmonica players, but as far as I'm concerned, John Popper was the first guy that I was introduced to ripping harmonica solos throughout random rock songs that
It's really interesting, and there's kind of a trend, I feel like, or there's different phases of rock music or just popular rock guitar-driven music. Certain instruments that had their day and that you don't really hear much anymore in terms of popular music. I mean, you go back to the 70s and the early 80s, I mean, you couldn't get through a rock song without hearing some saxophone. I mean, in the 90s, John Popper whips out the harmonica, oftentimes a staple in folk music and acoustic music. But, I mean, you get John Popper in there with the harmonica, and, I mean, it's timeless in my opinion. But, I mean, we got to bring... I love a good sax.
I love it. You can't make it through a song without the saxophone showing up.
It's just always there. And same thing with the harmonica. Really, I mean, John Popper was, the man of his day in terms of the harmonica playing ability for sure.
Yeah, he was pretty incredible. Yeah, I just remember listening to that on my way to summer practices and just listening to Blues Traveler just to really bring up my mood, because the harmonica is so bright usually. It's such it's one of those instruments that you just
think about Hook, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to look any further than that. And it's interesting, you don't hear these songs or these types of songs on the radio anymore.
Not really, yeah. I mean, you get them every once in a while, but
I remember hearing Blues Traveler and some other bands that I think have a lot of songs that deserve to be discussed in this kind of context would be, I mean, Matchbox 20, they're obviously right there. We've spoken a lot about the band live on this show, and Lightning Crashes, I know, is a big favorite of yours, and
I was going to say,
Lightning associate that heavily with the summer.
Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was at my summer camp that I worked at, and we did a rafting trip, and we were literally... We'd finished and we were pulling all the rafts out. All the kids were pulling the stuff, and the the bus that was picking us up had speakers on the top, and it was playing Lightning Crashes and we were pulling them out. And the guy was like, the other counselor was like, "Oh, Lightning Crashes!" Like, dude, he's like, "Nothing says summer more than this song." It says you can't beat this. And I was like looking around and listening to it. I was like, "You're totally right. This is awesome." I was like, "This is such a great song." That was my first time I listened to it too, and it was
and that song, of course, has the distinction, I would believe, as being the most popular song to use the word placenta in it.
Yeah.
So that's a distinction all its own that, I think it will carry for the rest of time. I don't think, people aren't playing these songs on the radio, and people aren't writing songs with the word placenta in it anymore.
Nope. The songwriting was different back then,
Just don't make them like they used to.
All right, Ethan, I got a few.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, I was say I got a few bands with a few hits from the 90s, and I'm going to have you pick one.
Okay.
All right, so the first one, you got Semi-Charmed Life or Graduate by Third Eye Blind.
Third Eye Blind. That was
coming
the
out in
band that I
97.
was just going to mention next. I mean, that debut album that they put out in 1997, the self-titled one, absolutely incredible. The lead-off track is pretty good too, but I think I have to pick Semi-Charmed Life. But Graduate, it's so good. I used to, that was on a running playlist of mine. And I have to say, like in like 97 or 98, that song must have hit differently for the high school seniors, you know?
I could imagine. Yeah. And then 90, yeah, for sure. And, there's Jumper there too, but that's not, that doesn't fit it as
Or
much
how's
as
it gonna be?
Semi-Charmed.
Motorcycle Drive-By.
Motorcycle Drive-By, one of our favorites.
Yeah.
All right.
God of Wine needs to be discussed as well. That's another great song. But yeah, I mean, they had both sides. They had the up and the down. And Semi-Charmed Life, I mean, that one, I mean, I think that's probably the most popular one from that record.
Yeah, that one's
reason.
massive. Yeah, that one's massive. It's a good song. Yeah. Really, pretty intense too if you break it down. But
yeah.
All right, so you're going with Semi-Charmed Life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So now we're going to step into Everclear world. We got Santa Monica or I Will Buy You a New Life.
Oh, it has to be I Will Buy You a New Life. As great as Santa Monica is, I Will Buy You a New Life just has that drive to it that is absolutely perfect. And Santa Monica is great too. I love the guitar intro to that song. And Everclear is a band that I forgot to write down, but absolutely perfect
I can't
for this time and place.
Yeah, Everclear is definitely one of the first like 90s hits bands that I think of because their top songs are super valuable to me compared to the rest of their I like their other stuff too, but I'm not as deep into it obviously.
Well, I don't, so that's good.
All right, this band I love for the summer, and it's No Doubt, Lil Gwen.
Yep.
And we got Just a Girl versus Don't Speak.
It has to be Just a Girl. That's a song that I wrote down too. Like the best part when that song gets going, especially in the chorus towards the end of the song, the last couple of times I make it through. I mean, it's just driving. It's peppy. It's energetic, and it's Gwen. Yeah. I mean, Gwen is the 90s.
Yeah,
no doubt. They are the 90s.
No doubt.
So there's no doubt about it.
No doubt. All right, I got to ask you. I know you're not a huge Dave fan, but you got Crash Into Me, Trippin' Billies, or 41.
It has to be Crash Into Me for me. Yeah. I would say I need to mention my least favorite Dave Matthews song of all time. Undoubtedly is Ants Marching. I fucking hate that song. I cannot stand it.
Did not expect that today.
I hate like the strings or whatever's going on in that.
Yeah.
And like his voice is very polarizing, obviously. You're either in or you're out. And that song, I'm generally in. Like I like Dave Matthews. I like Dave Matthews Band, but Ants Marching, I cannot do. But Crash is fucking perfect. It kind of has that like dreamy quality too. It's kind of Crash would be for when you've spent your whole day listening to No Doubt, Sublime, and the like, and then the sun goes down and there's only a few of you left
so
up
it's like Summer Love,
the fire, and you put Crash on. I know you love Dave Matthews, so what would you pick out of that trio?
I like Trippin' Billies is really awesome. 41's really good too. But for me, like, I mean, Dave Matthews has really high highs and really low lows. And
there's so much music too, so it's okay to have that part of the landscape.
Like when their band is rocking, like I said, I'm a big Carter Buford drummer fan. He's amazing, and their saxophone player and their all the auxiliary instruments are extremely good and add so much. But sometimes the strings can get pretty whiny with Dave and stuff, and that's how I totally understand.
It's too much like for me. It's just sometimes. But Crash is great. I love the end of Crash. That's the part of the song that I think of first, where he's like, "I'm the king of the castle and you're the dirty rascal." Crash Into Me. Yeah. He's got a great falsetto too.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, he's good. Okay,
I have one for you.
Let's hear it.
So, do you consider this album or not to be a part of what we're discussing? Because I absolutely do. Blink 182, Enema of the State.
Oh yeah, I'm in. It's a little, it does seem a little bit different. The punk versus like the super feel good, but I would totally agree that I'm playing Blink all summer. So
100%.
There's no question.
They just they just played recently their first shows reunited. I believe at Coachella.
That's right.
I think they just played, and I saw a cool TikTok of, I forget which song they were playing, but they were splicing back and forth between a performance in '99 versus a performance just at Coachella, and like how much slower the song is. And a lot of people were commenting. Yeah. It was interesting. A lot of people were commenting on the video, and they were saying like, if you were to have told me in 1999 that Blink-182 would become timeless, I wouldn't have believed you. But I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, you put the music out there, and you never know how it's going to be received.
Never know. Time
and
place, album, all that.
I mean, What's My Age Again? All the Small Things, and my personal favorite, Going Away to College.
Yeah, I do love that. That's
I mean, some of those songs, I mean, they are timeless, and people, I think, coming off of the grunge era and just how serious and heavy that music was, I think that kind of the pop punk-ish revival that Blink was certainly a part of, I don't think it got its proper merit from a lot of people because it sounded differently, because the guys were admittedly goofy, they dressed funny, they made fun of themselves a lot, and that kind of like tortured artist thing faded away. But it's one of those things that it still persists, and people still love this music, and there's younger generations who are listening to Blink. I mean, shit, some of this stuff is 25 years old. That's a long time. One of like the new bands of the 90s is 25, 30 years old now.
I mean, yeah, 2000 will be 25 years old when
pretty soon.
In 2 years, basically, a year and a half.
If my math is correct.
My math is correct.
Yeah. Another album that you mentioned this band before, but I want to know if I'm in the right zone. But one album that I absolutely consider to be a part of this would be Green Day's Dookie album.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Green Day, yeah, similar to Blink-182. I feel a little bit. I don't know. Green Day has its. I mean, Green Day has its own like genre in a way. Like they kind of aside from they were the earlier like pop punk kind of band, but they were more punky in the early days. Like so was Blink. I guess they were early with way more punk than poppy. Kind of coming off the heels of like UK's punk scene and whatnot, but doing their California punk,
Yeah. Yeah, and Green Day, like a lot of the stuff that they put out at the beginning of the decade, like their first big compilation album they put out, 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours, that's got a lot of stuff that as I've gotten older, I've associated more and more. But going back to Dookie, I mean, Longview and When I Come Around, I think are absolutely indispensable when it comes to this kind of vibe and this kind of genre. And I think a lot of the people that relate to grunge heavily, I mean, you couldn't escape a lot of this music because as grunge gave way and as 1994 moved on, I mean, a lot of the music that was also coming out in 94, 95, like Dookie, for example. I mean, you heard these songs, and even if you weren't playing these songs, you were getting in your friends' cars and they were playing these songs. Yeah. So I think, whatever your opinion of the summer hits genre would be and whatever you were into at the time, same thing goes latter half of the decade. If you were a nu metal kind of person, you heard a lot of these songs because they were everywhere. They were they were played over the PA, they were played on the radio, your friends had the CDs. And it's one of those things, and it just goes back to that marriage of music, of art, and just of youth. And you're always going to remember what it is that you were listening to. So,
Basket Case and She off of the Dookie. Yeah, we used to love listening to those.
Absolutely.
So I kind of gave like top 5 summer songs in no particular order. Yeah. But things let
me hear your list. I'm excited for this part.
Like I said, no particular order, but this one is. Came out in 91, so it's an earlier one, but it's Learning to Fly by Petty. And
yes, that's not one that I would have thought of, but now that you said it, it makes perfect sense.
Right, because it's early and it's just like an older, it's just a little bit, it's more of a classic rock, I guess, but it came out in 91. And oh man, I love it. It's such a good song for the summer for obvious reasons. She's So High, like we talked about with the Tal Bachman. That's
Tal Bachman, 100%. Yep.
No, if that doesn't fit the bill, then I don't know what does.
Yeah. Then the bill needs to be thrown out.
Now this one, you were saying like, you're sitting on the beach and the night comes to it's coming later in the night. Everybody's probably getting a little hungover from drinking throughout the whole day, but you got to keep going. And Save Tonight by Eagle Eye came out in 98, and that song is so like, It really does. It's like Save Tonight and talking about, keeping the night going. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I also put Santeria on there, but one of my favorite songs I've been listening to a ton kind of recently, really getting excited, is Steal My Sunshine by Len. It's kind of got that like weird, like, I don't even know, like a beat bop type of sound, like in the beginning, kind of electronic, and then he kind of sings with like a raspy voice the whole time. Steal my sunshine, and then they come in. Oh, that came out in '99 as well, and I just love that. Like it's just one of those songs from one of those bands. You know what I mean? That just fit the time and place. So, Do you have any all-timers that you feel like you need to bring up?
No, none that I haven't discussed, but I do need to mention a particular artist that, in my opinion, is one of the leaders of this area as well, and that would be Sheryl Crow. Yeah, I mean, Sheryl Crow, If It Makes You Happy, Soak Up the Sun, All I Want to Do. I mean, some of these songs are just, they're just perfect for this time. And I mean, she was really incredible. It is kind of the landscape post grunge in the 90s, like post 1994, is so interesting. And I think it's kind of like a natural point that we would want to discuss it, and we would want to just bounce ideas and thoughts back and forth, because it really was so diverse. I mean, grunge had this, really, really big, stranglehold on popular culture and everything, in my opinion. And then once it kind of ended, and even a lot of the grunge bands started to sound differently, or they broke up, or people passed away and everything. So I mean, it's just kind of this blank canvas, and the direction that a lot of people took it in is really, really interesting, and it makes me think back to the 1999 episode that we did, where we were talking about the Hot 100 from 1999, and just how diverse it is. And that's the interesting thing, because it's a genre, but not in the traditional sense, because a lot of these songs sound differently, but there's just something about the ethos behind them, and something about just the place that it came from, I think, that makes it all kind of fit together. I mean, you could throw all of these songs onto a playlist collectively, and while they all sound differently, and they would technically all be, several different genres, and they came from different backgrounds and had different influences, they all fit together. And together, I think they give you a really, really full view of kind of what that mood would be, and what that time would be like.
Absolutely. I would feel bad if I didn't bring up California Love by Tupac either, because that fits. There's some California rap and stuff that needs to be played on the beach, and has its place in the music scene. And that's why we talked about, I think in that episode, we talked about the diversity that was coming out of the 90s, how good hip hop was, how good rock and roll was, how good all of this stuff was, and how many individuals you had making music. Like people just stuck out. People were good at what they were doing.
And with credit to Tupac, I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time. I mean, that song, I think more than any of the 90s hip hop songs, is the biggest utility player, in the sense that I think it could fit in just about any sort of mood and any sort of playlist. I mean, you have the hip hop playlist, and you have the summer playlists, and I mean, Tupac was just absolutely incredible. And I'm normally an East Coast guy for the old school rap. Like I love East Coast, but I mean, Tupac, absolutely incredible. And that one, like you said, I mean, it fits perfectly.
I also want to bring up The Cure, Friday I'm in Love, came out in 92, but I love that song. I think it's so good. It's got it fits it as well, and it need to be mentioned. It's more of an honorable, more than an honorable mention, I'd say.
Absolutely. And that this episode kind of speaks to the fact of just how ridiculous and how all inclusive this era was. I mean, I didn't know that we would be talking about The Cure. I didn't know that we would be talking about Tom Petty. As soon as you mention them, though, it makes perfect sense that they all kind of belong in this space. And I feel like almost like anybody who was active. I mean, you could make the case that Pearl Jam's cover of Last Kiss deserves to be in this setting. I mean, I don't think any other Pearl Jam song could be, but I could put Last Kiss in this realm. But I mean, it's certainly a diverse era. Yeah.
For sure. It's funny, Red Hot Chili Peppers don't have like they represent the 90s, and people are going to be listening to, but they don't necessarily like come up in my mind all the time for this type, but it fits. So they come up on a playlist like I mean, Dana California came out in 2000, but I love that song. Yeah, there's some good ones. I got My Own Worst Enemy. You almost forgot about Lit.
We could never forget about My Own Worst Enemy.
That's such a good one. And I got one more that I'm going to say for my song of the week we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, well, I think that serves as good a segue as any. As many different influences and areas that, the music that comprises this genre of the summer hits, as many areas as they come from, we have equally as many areas that people come together and join this same space to support us on this show. And we're really thankful for everybody that's chosen to do so, whether it be listening, leaving a review, supporting us financially, buying some merch, or just sending us an encouraging comment, or in Drew McFadden's case, working with us weekly on this podcast. And we are very grateful for all of them, for their support, their guidance, their encouragement, and just their time at the end of the day, because I think out of all things, you can make money back. You can go out and catch the next game or whatever, but I mean, you can't get your time back. So anybody who's chosen to give us time over the last 109 episodes, we are very, very grateful for. And, we look forward to continuing it. And, something that's nice. I mean, we feel comfortable in this space to just discuss whatever it is that's on our mind at that time. And this week we wanted to talk about the summer hits, so we decided to do it. And we hope everybody kind of got something out of it, and maybe it made you think back to some of the songs that you were listening to in the summer back when you were a kid.
Yeah,
nailed the segue.
Nailed it. Yeah, you did. That was solid work.
Excellent.
Yes, Drew is excited to be getting us new microphones. So if you guys decide to become a patron, that's exactly what all dues will be going towards. We need new mics and lighting, Chris. We've been talking about it for 108 episodes, basically.
We've been talking about it for a long time.
One of these times we're gonna have them, and we're gonna, we're just gonna celebrate on.
I'm telling you, when we get the new
awesome.
mics and when we get the new lighting, I'm not going to shut up about it. Every single week,
it'll be almost it'll almost be as bad as how many episodes we've done in a row.
Yeah, we don't miss. In case you didn't hear, we have new microphones.
We sound beautiful now that we have good microphones.
There is a discernible difference in our audio quality.
Yeah, the microphones, they don't pick up the heater and AC units.
I know. So. Maybe I'd be able to actually record a podcast with my air conditioning on this summer. Who knows? That might be wishful thinking, but we'll see. But nevertheless, your support will go directly towards the microphone fund for the Grunge Bible podcast. So we're looking forward to debuting those at some point in the future. And you can make that a hell of a lot sooner by supporting us. So go ahead. Check the show notes and get some skin in the game.
Last order of business is to take care of the song of the week. Chris, I will go first.
All right.
Came out in 1999 off of Astro Lounge. Smash Mouth's All Star needs to be included. Incredible song. I don't care what you say. You like it. Everyone likes it. Hey now, you're an all-star. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful song, and I love that it had a resurgence in the last 5 years and came back. Meme culture, whatever. I don't care why, but it's back in the fold.
Doesn't matter. It's back. Yeah.
That's when it's good. If you,
that's
it's
the thing. I mean,
Creed. Creed is a meme, but it's still
right. Well, and the best part, if you're a Smash Mouth, I mean, whether it's a meme or not, I mean, the money is still green. The money's still green.
The money's still green. Yep.
I mean, this is big stuff that Mr. Mouth was talking about on here. I mean, didn't make sense not to live for fun. Your brain gets smart, but your head gets dumb. I mean, it's true, and it gives you that encouragement, so much to do, so much to see. So really, at the end of the day, what's wrong with taking the back streets? Dude, you'll never know if you don't go.
You'll never know if you don't go.
And you'll never shine if you don't glow. So next time you're feeling a little unsure of what the next step is, just listen to what Smash Mouth had to say.
Yeah, he was
Mouth.
Yeah, he was
the man for the job.
A real virtuoso. Incredible stuff.
As such. Well, I am not going to pick a summer hit of the 90s or of the 2000s for my song of the week. I'm going to go with a recently released song off of a recently released album, and it's by a musician named Brian Dunn. He is a I guess you would say singer-songwriter, kind of folk rock, that kind of vibe from New York. And he just released an album called Loser on the Ropes, and I'd like to select the last song on that album called Something to Live For as my song of the week. Brian Dunn has been a big presence in my listening life for probably the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. One of my really good friends that I met at college showed me Brian Dunn's music a long time ago, and for both of us, a couple of his sadder songs really hit at a point where he kind of needed something like that. So I was really excited to see that he released a new album, and it seems like just as we've turned a corner, it seems like he's maybe turning a corner in what he's writing about and hopefully how he's feeling. So
awesome.
That's going to be my song of the week. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Good stuff.
I'm excited to listen. I haven't listened to much of Brian Dunn, so
yeah,
I'm excited.
His most popular songs, there's one song called New Tattoo, and then there's one song called Taxi. That were his most popular. I think both of them were released maybe in like 2018, 2019, around there. So like right when we were getting out of college, and it struck me at the time because a lot of those songs are kind of existential. And it's like, what do I do next? Where do I go next? And I mean, that was the point in life where I was at, where you graduate, and it's like, where do I turn to next? So, you have that, and then you have Smash Mouth telling you what's wrong with taking the back streets. I mean, if only I knew to combine those two at the time, I'd own a yacht or something by now.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
That's why we
amazing.
make this podcast, though, because we'll own yachts pretty soon.
Yep.
How much money we make off of this. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Chris, that wraps it up.
Yeah, the wraps are all up.
April is moving along here. It is
non-negotiable April.
Non-negotiable April. Thank God it's moving along. I cannot wait for my first iced coffee of the season in May. And
great. Well, the best part, Ethan, by the time this episode comes out, we'll only have 1 week left.
Yeah.
Of no caffeine and no nicotine. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We appreciate your time, and we will catch you next week for episode 110 of the Grunge Bible Podcast. But in the meantime, rock and roll. Take it easy. Take care.
See you guys. Talk same place, same time next week.
Stay heavy.